street style.
One of the questions I often get asked is, how do you catch shrimp in a tank? How do you specifically select a shrimp and catch that? As all of you know, most of my tanks are not heavily planted, but I do have a tank in the house that's got shrimp in it and that is quite heavily planted. So the starting point for me would be a decent net, and there's two nets that I use. So I use a circular one, which is made by SL Aqua, carbon frame. This is quite well worn, this one. And I also use a Shrimps Affair one that's square with like a fiberglass handle. They're both similar in size, they're almost identical, but what's nice about them is the nets are stiff. So both of them have a stiff net. This one's quite well worn, I've had this quite a while, but the benefit of that is it glides through the water and the net doesn't fold when you lift it out of the water. So with all that being said, this is my net of choice. Let's hook up on a tank. I do need to catch a couple of shrimp, and I'll sort of show you how to select a shrimp, and more importantly, if it's planted, how to get them to where you want them in order to select one and catch one. So let's get to that. So this is my Blue Bolt tank, and I did move some stuff in here from my old mixed Blue Bolt Blue Steel tank. So there are a couple in here that I do want to remove, and apologies for any reflections. Because this tank has quite a short gap above it on my rack, what I'll be using is let's pull that back a second, a shorter version of the Shrimps Affair net. So this is a 25 centimeter, I think, or 20 centimeter, and it just works for me. Now, just looking at this tank, the shrimp that I want are right at the back. So what I could do is I could go right to the back and try and catch that shrimp, and it's actually jumped into the net and out again, and literally just lift that up. So I do have a place for that to go, so I'm just going to put that where it needs to go. Ideally, you want to be putting these into a jug, and if you're moving them into another one of your tanks, you want to be acclimating them. I'm lucky I can sort of just plop and drop mine because the parameters are the same. There is another one to the right that I want. So this one here, and it is just gentle, so no speed, just nice and gentle, and a shrimp normally jumps backwards, but you can use that to your advantage. And because these nets are quite flat, you can I'll show you this, you can slide that up the tank and then just flip it at the last minute, and that catches the shrimp. The final way to do this, and obviously this works in planted tanks as well, it's the stiff net that makes the difference. Sorry, I'm just putting this in the tank that it's going into. So the final way of doing this is you feed them right at the front and you sit and wait, and when all the shrimp come out, you can quite easily pick the ones out that you don't want to keep. So I'll be quite brutal with this tank. There are a few in here that I just don't want in here. There's probably another 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and there aren't a lot of shrimp in this tank to start with. It gets a little bit more difficult when you're selecting from tanks that are absolutely heaving with shrimp. That's where it sort of starts to get more difficult. So this big mama here at the back, she's a candidate. So I just don't like the colour on her, and it is literally block it up against and then last minute turn it. On the subject of these blues, I'm going to put a good offer up on the website gbshrimp.co.uk, because I've got some sort of mixed steels and bolts, and I want to sort of thin out that colony a little bit. So that little guy there can go, or girl, because I don't know yet. And I did spot a similar one, which was there. So net behind them, and just gradually, so just gentleness really. And if you're careful, you can quite simply get them in the net. So I'll sort of wrap up there. To me, catching shrimp has become so much easier since I invested in a net that stays stiff. And I'll show you how this stays stiff underwater. There's one more that I want to do, but let me just quickly move the camera up. I can't take it much higher than that because I'm at full extension on the tripod. But the one back here that I want to get. And it just stays stiff. I don't know if you guys can see that from there, but it just stays stiff even on the surface. The net doesn't collapse, doesn't fold in on itself. It's just so much easier to use. But with all that being said, thank you all for watching. Hope you found this informative and useful. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, help us to grow the channel. Like the video, share it with your friends, leave a comment. We'll either give it a heart or we'll respond to that. And until next time, everyone, take care. Bye bye.